Hello and welcome to GuyLogicGaming. My name is Temko and this is Nidhogg 2, the sequel to the 2014 indie hit of Nidhogg. Nidhogg 2 is going to try and match and surpass its original with a variety of new gameplay options and a very new and distinctive art style. But can it do the job? Because Nidhogg is going to have to overcome something that many sequels are suffering from. Obviously, the game is a very specific game style. It's a very simple idea with a perfect execution. And sadly, expanding on that execution often results in a watering down. Now, Nidhogg 2 adds new weapons, new maps, and new options for multiplayer, so we're gonna have to see whether or not it does a fantastic job or whether or not you might as well just play Nidhogg 1. Before we dive into gameplay though, let's take a look at the options and talk a little bit about PC settings and PC performance. Options wise, there isn't a lot to talk about in terms of video options. There's either windowed or full screen mode, and then there is low, medium or high effects quality. The game is not heavy to run. It's a 2D game with a very distinct art style that is very polarizing whether or not you like it, but that's really it. There is no further video options, which puts us straight back to audio options, which is music and SFX. I've put them very low on my end because I generally prefer a bit more muted sounds overall compared to the gameplay audio, but your preference is as it is. There isn't a lot to say here. The background music is the music and the SFX is mostly combat and death sounds. Nothing really too unusual. Controls are fully rewindable. This includes gamepad and keyboard controls, and if you have a second player on the same local multiplayer behind the same computer, you have keypad bindings and game bindings for them as well. Pretty good overall, no real complaints. The gameplay controls are pretty simple. There's movement, there's attacking, jumping, and then moving backwards. There is really nothing else to speak of. The online and local multiplayer do have an additional feature. Online has the ability to invite a friend. The invite a friend feature is using Steam's friend list, so you can invite friends through Steam, and the find a opponent variant also has the ability to go into ranked mode or not, and how far away you want someone to be from you locally. I'm assuming this has something to do with latency, so you might have a better online experience, and I'll talk a little bit about the online experience as we get into gameplay. What I'll be showing you is the arcade mode, which is basically the same as Nidhogg 1's arcade mode, where you go through a variety of stages and kill a bunch of enemies where you have full control over how your character looks like. So let's go ahead and dive into Nidhogg 2 gameplay. As we dive into the arcade mode, there's two distinct features for Nidhogg 2 that set it apart from its predecessor. The first is the very different art style indeed. Now, the game has some customization options in terms of your character itself. You can change hairstyles and shirts and pants and whatnot, but there is no real technical options to change the art style. Now, in most 2D games, I don't really mind, but here I would have liked at least the ability to add shadows or play with something like AA or post-processing effects, because right now the game straddles that line for me between just ugly and sufficiently retro-esque while still retaining a high level of visual fidelity and quality that is definitely not retro. And I'm not sure why that is for me. Maybe it's the very clean backdrops in terms of a look and feel. Castles are very clean. Even the areas that are in a cavern are very cool looking, and everything looks and feels sufficiently high fidelity that it would fit in any modern pseudo-retro title. And then you have the character visuals and the character animations that don't really feel great at all. I don't like the look of the characters. They're really ugly caricatures of what they could be, and even customizing my character to minimize my annoyance with it, it still isn't as great as I'd like it to be. Now, this is obviously a very subjective opinion, and your mileage may very much vary. You might really enjoy these visuals as opposed to me really disliking them, but they are what they are, and they are a massive departure from Nidhogg 1. But they do cause one minor issue that I have that Nidhogg 1 never had, and that is the clutter on screen. With the changes in art style, the overall world has become a lot busier. There's a lot more going on in the background, there's a lot more movement, there's a lot more animations, there's a lot more on-screen cues that you don't really have to pay attention to. They're just there for visual prettiness and overall prettifying of the game. It's still 1v1 and you're still wielding your sword or your rapier or whatever else you want to face an opponent and trying to reach the end of the level. But nonetheless, there is a lot more happening that causes distraction and overall clutter on screen, which results in that you as a player might be overwhelmed at any given time with what might be going on, meaning you might miss what your opponent is doing and any cues they might have. On occasion, This might be fine if you're not paying attention, but in various scenarios, overlays on screen, big flashing text on screen, and even things like the way the background animation shift between different scenes can and will cause distractions that you can't foresee. A big blob of text on screen that covers half your screen doesn't really provide a good method of providing clarity in terms of visual fidelity, and that is a major issue for Nidhogg 2 as opposed to Nidhogg 1, where you always had this very clean, almost sterile look to the game. Liking the visuals aside or not, which is very much a subjective opinion, the level of clarity that is lost on occasion does cause some serious annoyances here and there in various levels. And if you're going online in rank mode, that might be the difference between taking a hit or not noticing your opponents doing something. I've fallen into pits several times because I didn't notice they were there while my screen was being run over with a variety of different effects at any given time, which is definitely an annoyance for sure. The second big departure from Nidhogg 1 to Nidhogg 2 is the addition of more weapons. Obviously, the rapier that we know from Nidhogg 1 and we love from Nidhogg 1 is still here, and all the fine-tuned combat and controls with multiple levels of attacking, low, medium, and high, parries, counter-attacks where you can remove your sword from your opponent's hand if you time it properly, and even rolls and jumps and mace smashes and pummeling him into the ground are all available, including the weapon throwing. But now there are 3 additional weapons available in Nidhogg 2 that you have to balance against. So not just the rapier is available now, you also have a bow, a broadsword, and a dagger in the game as well. And depending on the level you're playing, you'll spawn in with a rapier or one of the other 3 weapons, and you have to play with that. You can still throw the weapon and pick up a different weapon when you throw it on the ground. If you kill an opponent and their broadsword lies on the ground and you throw your dagger at a newly spawned opponent, you can just pick up the broadsword. This is no different from Nidhogg 1. What is different is that each of these weapons behaves differently. Obviously, the broadsword, rapier, and dagger are going to have a different range. The dagger is going to be very short range, the rapier mid range, and the broadsword long range. But beyond that, they also have different effects. Where the dagger is very easy to get in and roll with, you can much more easily parry an opponent with it. The broadsword allows you to disarm opponents much easier with a much more leeway in the controls as opposed to rapier that is a very tight arc you need to create to disarm an opponent. The rapier still is the fastest weapon, allows you to dash forward and stab someone, and obviously the bow allows you to shoot someone from a range. All the weapons outside the bow also allow you to parry arrows and shoot them back at the same level to your opponent. This means that blocking and counter blocking is still very important to Nidhogg. Nothing really different as opposed to Nidhogg 1 here outside of an expansion of weapons. And if that's what you're looking for, just more of the same, then Nidhogg 2 does definitely provide that. Obviously provided you can deal with the very distinct change in visual fidelity and graphic style. Now, that said, there is one issue with the new changes to combat interaction, especially with the new weapons, that really pulls down Nidhogg 2 for me from very, very good to merely acceptable, and that is how the new weapons interact with one another. Now, obviously, each of the new weapons has their own gimmick. As I said earlier, the dagger allows you to get in faster, the broadsword is easier to knock someone's weapon out of their hands with, etc. But each of these weapons, as opposed to Nidhogg 1's rapier versus rapier combat, has a lot more leeway in the controls. Where Nidhogg 1 controls were exceedingly tight and precise, Nidhogg 2 is a lot looser and is a lot more forgiving to mistakes and little minor things that happen. There is more leeway built into the combat interaction for Nidhogg 2. Now, if you're playing with friends on a local game, if you're just using it as a party game, that is actually fine. It creates a more enjoyable experience. It reduces the range between extreme skill matches. If you're very good and your friend isn't really good, they might still get a couple of cool hits in, and that is very fun from a casual, enjoyable party experience. And even online with friends, that is solid. But if you're playing this game on a competitive level, and with the introduction of ranked online mode, there might be then that additional level of forgiveness, that additional level of leeway within each mechanical interaction is very, very bad. So this is a choice you're going to have to make for yourself, because Nidhogg 2's changes compared to Nidhogg 1 are basically the same game with a few additional gimmicks and a lot of very polarizing changes compared to its predecessor. So I find myself finding it very hard to unilaterally recommend Nidhogg 2 as a game versus Nidhogg 1. If you've never played Nidhogg 1, Nidhogg 2 is a phenomenal title and you should definitely try it out. But if you are a veteran of Nidhogg 1 and you come in here expecting something more from Nidhogg 2 but still trying to to emulate that feel for Nidhogg 1, you might be a little bit disappointed in some areas. As I said, the visual fidelity of the game and the overall clutter is one area where I personally am very disappointed. I really dislike the characters and the look and feel of the overall Nidhogg 2 experience. It doesn't look nice to me. But more than that, I am someone that is very competitive, and when I play a game with a ranked mode, I enjoy playing that ranked mode. And one of the things with Nidhogg 1 was that its gameplay was very precise. It was basically a fighting game in some regards. And with Nidhogg 2, the controls are a lot clunkier. I find myself repeatedly wondering why a hit I did, or why something an opponent did missed or hit or somehow got past me. Why I could do a roll in one scenario and why I got stomped off in another scenario. All the things being identical, the same thing should have occurred. And when you're playing ranked mode online, that is what you'd expect. Very tight controls. Sadly, Nidhogg 2 just doesn't have those. And when I was playing with a friend and we were playing casually just online against one another, it is very enjoyable to get these interesting moments in. But as soon as I switched to ranked mode, I only found myself becoming frustrated and not enjoying the game because of this extra additional leeway built into the mechanics. Overall, Nidhogg 2 is facing a very tough job. As I said at the start of the review, a sequel always has a hard job trying to differentiate itself from a predecessor in many regards. Some games, like RPGs, can just build on a story, expand the narrative, expand the gameplay experience for the player while still keeping the same core mechanics. The problem with Nidhogg is that it doesn't really have a story. All that it is the core gameplay mechanics. And when you have Nidhogg 1 that is as tight a package as a game gets, with very precise mechanics, very precise controls, and very precise ideas on what it tries to achieve, Nidhogg 2 either has to introduce new ideas or expand on those ideas significantly to distinguish itself from its predecessor. And I feel Nidhogg 2 does distinguish itself from its predecessor, but it might not do so enough for your gameplay experience. The new weapons and the gimmicks associated with these weapons and the characteristics of these weapons are very interesting, but the changes to art style create clutter. The changes to the leeway in weapon precision are very different and might run into you not enjoying them personally, and the changes to timings between attacks and combos might result in you not enjoying the game as much as you did with Nidhogg 1. Nidhogg 2 isn't by no means a bad title. Its controls are still very fantastic, its online mode is still stable as all hell. I've not had any issues with matchmaking, I've not had any issues with online gameplay. Ranked mode is very solid, and the introduction of a pseudo King of the Hill 8-man tournament mode is also very good. The game has expanded significantly in the visual style, in the gameplay scope, and the overall weapon variety, and thus tactical depth of the gameplay available. In all regards, Nidhogg 2 is a very iterative evolution on its predecessor. It takes a couple of steps forward and tries out new ideas, but never really pushes the envelope in any specific way outside of the visual style. And if you enjoyed Nidhogg 1, you will probably enjoy Nidhogg 2, but you will not enjoy it due to its changes in graphical style or due to its changes in mechanical tightness. You will enjoy it despite those, because it is still a very good game. And if you've never played Nidhogg, there is no reason not to take a look at Nidhogg 2. It is still a very solid experience, provided, again, you can deal with the art style, which I really cannot from a personal standpoint. Nidhogg 2 is available on Steam on August 15 for the price of €15 or your regional equivalent. And if you've never played Nidhogg, I do suggest checking the game out. It is a very enjoyable, high-octane, high-intensity pseudo-fighting game that does provide a ton of enjoyable fun and challenge to players involved. And if you have played Nidhogg 1, well, it's more of the same with some additional changes that you may or may not like. If you want to check it out, there's a link in the description below for exactly that purpose. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more content like this on the channel, do press that subscribe button down below. And if you want to support GuyLogicGaming, you can also check us out on Patreon. There is a link for that in the description down below. So I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on GuyLogicGaming.